This is Amira Blake, and today we're diving into one of the most important financial crossroads of our time. Iraq's banking system is undergoing a transformation that could change not only its own economy, but the balance of wealth across the region. We'll look at Oliver Wyman's reform plan, the deadlines Iraq faces, the shift toward digital banking, and of course, the speculation around the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. You know, every few decades, a nation reaches a crossroads so sharp, so decisive, that a single policy can shift the wealth of generations. Iraq is standing at that very crossroads right now. And if you've been watching quietly from the sidelines, you've probably felt the tremors already. Digital banks being reviewed by Oliver Wyman, reforms stretching into 2027, whispers of a cashless society by mid 2026, and yes, that never ending speculation about the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. But here's the big question. If that reinstatement ever came, would it happen before the reforms are done, or only after Iraq's financial house is in order? Let's go deep. Picture this. More than 80 applications already submitted by companies eager to establish digital banks in Iraq. The Central Bank of Iraq has pulled in Oliver Wyman, one of the world's most respected consultancies, to help review the criteria, build frameworks, and decide who gets licensed. This isn't a side project, it's the scaffolding of a brand new financial system. Why is this even necessary? Because Iraq has been stuck for years in a cash-driven economy, dependent on dollar auctions, with weak compliance and exposure to sanctions. What happens to a nation that tries to modernize its banks while still using cash for nearly everything? The answer is pressure, instability, and missed opportunities. Think of Iraq like a house built on mud. It stands, but every storm shakes it. Banking reform is the foundation rebuild. Think back to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. Many houses stood, but the foundations were weak, waterlogged, broken. Rebuilding didn't just mean repainting the walls, it meant replacing the base that carried the whole structure. That's Iraq right now. The storm of sanctions and instability has exposed every weakness, and without rebuilding the base, the next storm will be worse. Now, Oliver Wyman's role comes with clear deadlines. By October 2025, their criteria review for digital banks must be delivered. By July 2026, the government has pledged to phase out cash payments in state institutions. No more stacks of dinars across counters in ministries. By 2027, banks will need to have boosted their capital, in some cases nearly doubling reserves, bringing their financial backbone in line with international standards. Capital is the financial spine of a bank. Too weak, and the whole body collapses. These deadlines are not just dates on a calendar. They are checkpoints in a transformation that could either elevate Iraq into a credible emerging market or leave it floundering under sanctions. And then there's the elephant in the room, the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar. In plain language, reinstatement, or revaluation, would mean bringing the dinar back to a stronger international value, perhaps even closer to historic levels. Imagine walking into a market in Baghdad with your dinars, and for the first time in decades, the world values them like gold. That's the dream so many retail investors whisper about. But why is it so controversial? Because it collides with both politics and economics. Some argue it's a fantasy, others argue it's inevitable. The truth is, the decision lies with the Central Bank of Iraq, and their calculus is brutally simple: stability versus risk. If you were running Iraq's central bank, would you risk a currency reset on weak infrastructure, or would you wait until every bolt is tightened? Remember when Apple released the first iPhone? The hardware was revolutionary, but the infrastructure wasn't ready. Mobile internet was slow, networks were weak, and adoption was patchy. Yet Apple pressed forward, and over time the infrastructure caught up. Sometimes bold moves create momentum. Could Iraq try the same, launching an RI before its systems are fully mature, hoping the world catches up afterward? This is where the two scenarios diverge. The first, an early reinstatement, perhaps in late 2025 or 2026. The central bank could move quickly, before reforms are fully implemented, to shock the system and show strength. The advantage? Quick relief, political wins, and a jolt of confidence to Iraqis and foreign investors alike. The risk? Enormous. Weak compliance means money laundering could spiral, Volatility could shake markets, and international partners like the US Treasury might step back in with harsh restrictions. It's like taking your car on a cross country trip before you fix the brakes. The second scenario, a post reform reinstatement, perhaps 2027 or 2028. This path means waiting until Oliver Wyman's playbook is fully rolled out, until banks are capitalized, digital systems are humming, and cash is nearly gone. The advantage? Stability, credibility, and alignment with IMF and international banking partners. The drawback? Slower payoff. Citizens may grow frustrated, investors impatient, and Iraq risks missing a window of oil driven strength. But here's the metaphor. It's like opening a restaurant after training your chefs, fixing your ovens, and locking down your suppliers. Fewer surprises, more consistency. For investors, the big question isn't just when, it's who benefits. If the dinar is reinstated early, who gets to capitalize first? Is it the everyday Iraqi or the insiders who knew before you? And if it's delayed, do patient investors reap a bigger harvest when the reforms are secure? This isn't just theory. It's a test of patience, strategy, and perspective. It's like the California gold rush. Those who rushed in first often struck gold, but many more lost everything because they weren't prepared. Later, those who built banks, railroads, and stores, the infrastructure around the gold, made fortunes steadily and safely. Iraq's story could rhyme with that. July 2026 looms like a thundercloud. That's the date when government offices stop accepting cash. Think about that. No more cash for taxes, fees, or salaries. Suddenly, Iraqis will need digital wallets, bank accounts, and a trust in financial institutions that hasn't existed in decades. For some, it will feel like liberation. For others, like surveillance. Would you trust your government if tomorrow they told you cash was no longer allowed? That's the emotional question every Iraqi will wrestle with. Meanwhile, capital boosts are non-negotiable. Banks must raise billions of dinars in fresh capital. Why? Because international regulators, and especially the US Treasury, have Iraq under the microscope. The dollar auctions, the flow of cash, the potential for corruption, this is not just about modernization, it's survival. Without compliance, Iraq risks being shut out of global markets. This isn't about making Iraq modern, it's about keeping Iraq connected to the world. Imagine if the dinar reinstatement happens early, oil prices double, and Iraq suddenly attracts 20 million tourists by 2030. Would that be a miracle or a setup for collapse? Now imagine if it doesn't happen until after 2027, when banks are capitalized, cash is phased out, and Iraq is seen as the financial hub of the Middle East. Would that be slower, but safer? Think of Dubai. 40 years ago, it was a small desert trading port. Bold moves, sometimes ahead of the infrastructure, turned it into a global hub. Iraq could aim for a Dubai-like leap. But just as easily, bold moves could overextend it and lead to collapse, like Venezuela after oil. Which path will Iraq choose? And here's the comparison that makes the speed and potential of Iraq's transformation clearer. Think of what happened when artificial intelligence met cloud computing. AI by itself was powerful, but the cloud gave it global reach, speed, and scalability. Suddenly, we saw an explosion of wealth creation, industry disruption, and innovation that touched every part of our lives, from finance to medicine to media. Iraq's collaboration with Oliver Wyman on digital banking is capable of something similar in its own domain. It's the meeting of vision and infrastructure, of ambition and execution. If it works, the sheer speed, power, and wealth that could flow from this marriage of reform and technology might reshape not just Iraq, but how the region does business with the world. Here's what we know with certainty. October 2025 brings the Oliver Wyman Criteria Review. July 2026 brings the end of cash in government. 2027 sets the deadline for capital increases. And somewhere beyond those dates, in the fog of speculation, lies the possibility of a reinstated dinar. For early believers, it could be a windfall. For latecomers, it could be safer ground. For Iraq, the choice will define its economic future. This is Iraq's financial crossroads, the reforms led by Oliver Wyman, the race against cash, the question of the dinar's true value. The decision isn't just about money, it's about sovereignty, credibility, and the power to write a new story. Do you believe the central bank would dare pull the trigger early? Or will they wait until every reform box is checked? Think about it, talk about it, and prepare yourself. Because whichever path they choose, It won't just change Iraq, it could ripple across the region and the world. I'm Amira Blake, and this has been a deep exploration of Iraq's financial transformation. If you found value in this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next update. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them and responding in follow-ups. I am not a financial advisor, insider, or licensed broker. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this discussion should be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research and consult with a licensed professional before making investment decisions.